Hey FlossTube, this is Brian. Welcome back. This is my 81st FlossTube video, and I'm excited to share with you what I've been working on this week. But first of all, I want to welcome you. If you are new to my channel, welcome. I hope that you enjoy the things that I have to share with you. And if you are coming back, thank you for watching my videos. And thank you for commenting and liking and subscribing to my channel. I enjoy hearing from you. It's been a great week. As I mentioned last week, my son has been here for spring break. He was able to drive down safely, and thank you everybody for all of your well wishes on his regard. He is actually left, just barely left a couple of minutes ago. He is headed back to Utah to finish up the semester of school. We've really enjoyed having him here, and it's been really nice. So things are going to kind of slow down a little bit with him not around. Everything else is going well, and work is going well, keeping me nice and busy, which that's better than the alternative. So before we get started, I just want to share with you some of the comments and questions that I've received since my last video. And first of all, my last video, I put out a request for marigold patterns in response to a question that I had received. And I had lots of suggestions of where to find marigold patterns. So thank you everybody for all of your suggestions. And I just want to highlight a couple of suggestions that were given. First of all, the Scarlet House has a chart called Dried Gourds and Marigolds. So that is a possibility. Riolis has a couple of kits that have marigolds in them. And also RTO has a couple of kits with marigolds in them. Northern Expressions Needlework, from what I understand, has a pattern with marigolds in it. And also Cottage Garden Samplings has a marigold pattern. And there are a couple of William Morris patterns, a couple of patterns based off of William Morris designs that also have marigolds in them. Probably the easiest way to find patterns is to do a search on some of the big online cross-stitch sites like 123 Stitch or Everything Cross Stitch, or you can also look on Etsy, and there's some marigold patterns on Etsy as well. Another tip that I got is calendula is another name for marigolds. And for example, Ellen Mars Stroh has a series of free patterns, kind of flowers of the month patterns. One of her patterns is calendula, which is a type of marigold. So you could also look up her on her website and take a peek there and see if that's a pattern that you like. So just do a search. I'm sure you'll find something that you really like. So thank you everybody for all of your help with that. So Julie asked me, how many inches do I add to the top and bottom of my fabric so that it fits in my scroll bars? And generally, I think a good rule of thumb for my scroll bars is about 3 inches on top and bottom. And I just saw a video with Deborah, AZ Needleworker. She gave a suggestion. She uses the exact same frame that I use, the Omanique Quantum frame. And she actually stitches a little pocket at the top and bottom of her fabric. And then the rod, she just slides into that pocket, which is a really good idea. I like that idea. If I could sew a straight line so that my fabric would be straight, I would consider that. So but that's another possibility. I'll put a link to her video and you can check her out. She really works on some really great projects. Her last video is basically a whip parade, and she's working on some really awesome stuff. So go ahead and check her out. I will link specifically to where she is talking about what she's doing to sew that little pocket, but you can watch the entire video and see what she's working on. Okay, Patricia asked me, how do I store my large whips? Do you keep them on scroll rods or take them off with each project change? Can you show us your stitching frame and rods? So my frame is very easy to load and unload. So I am constantly, every week I change the project that is on my frame. And so I store all of my whips in a big bin, and I brought it down so that you could see it. If I can fit it in the frame. This is one of those bins that I think they're meant to store wrapping paper. And all of my whips and some of my finished projects are actually in here too. If you look, you can see they're kind of rolled up. Once I start stitching on something, I don't like to fold it, so I keep them rolled so that I don't get extra creases in them. So this is the box that I store them in. As far as storing my floss, I put my floss on bobbins and floss boxes. And on a shelf in my closet, I just have a stack of boxes, of floss boxes. And when I finish a project, I put the box that I just finished on top of the stack, and then I pull out my new project from the bottom of the stack, basically. So that's basically how I store everything. I'm going to show you my frame a little bit later when I show you what I've been working on this week. So stay tuned and I'll show you that. Mary, I mentioned last week that I'm playing the organ, and it's been fun to get back to that. It's been a couple of years since I have done that, and I've actually been surprised at how much I actually remember. My feet actually remember where all the pedals are. So that's been really nice. I'm playing again tomorrow, so I have to go down and practice. And Mary said, basically asked me, is it a pipe organ? And no, it's not a pipe organ. It's an electronic organ that is hooked into the speaker system. So it does some really nice sound. I wish it was a pipe organ. When I took organ lessons when I was at university, and I played on the big pipe organ that was in the concert hall. I loved practicing on that organ and making all that sound. That's part of the reason why I love organs so much, is because you can make big room-filling sound, and it really sounds wonderful. So I wish we had a pipe organ in our church. We don't. We just have an electronic organ. Mary also said that her husband listens to organ music all the time. I really like organ music. I especially like Bach, toccatas and fugues. I really like I love fugues, and I love fugues and kind of the complexity that is involved with those. Mary Jo asked me, about why we came to Arizona. She's noticed that all of our family lives up in Utah and Idaho, and that's where my kids have gone to school. Why am I in Arizona? It's because I accepted a job down here and moved down here for work. So that's why we're here. And we've gotten to the point where I think this is basically home for us now. We like not having to deal with the cold winters like we used to have up in Utah. Okay, I also had last week I had a question about why would you want to stitch reversibly, and I had a commenter that gave me a good reason why you would want to learn to stitch reversibly. And that is, if you are working on something where the backside will be visible, you would want to do that. For example, they used to stitch like monograms on handkerchiefs and stuff. And in that case, you would want to be able to stitch it so that it looked good on both sides. I've had some people say, well, if you're going to frame it and you're never going to see the back, why take the, why go through that? And I say, because I want to improve my stitching. So I guess that's another reason, is if you have something that's visible and you want it to look good on both sides. So that is all the comments that I have. Thank you so much for all of your comments. I really enjoy hearing from you. and would be glad to answer any other questions that you have for me. So on my last video, I also announced a drawing for a set of project bags, and I have chosen a name using the YouTube comment picker, and I have a winner for you, and the winner is Gigi Stitches. So Gigi, congratulations. I hope that you enjoy these bags. I will get them mailed to you. If you will either email me or PM me on Instagram with your address, I will get them sent out to you. So congratulations, I hope that you really enjoy them. So let's talk a little bit about what I have been stitching this week. It's been a great week, and I'm excited to share with you what I have been stitching. So I have been working on this, which is the Red House Sampler by Brenda Keys. Her design company is the Sampler Company. And this was my start for 2020. And we are also doing a stitch along. So I have had lots of people who have joined me in stitching this, and I've enjoyed watching them. If you want to join the stitch along, all you have to do is post on Instagram with the hashtag BTL Red House Sampler. And if you do that, then everybody can follow that hashtag and see how everybody's doing. There's some people who are further ahead of this than I am, and I'm hoping to catch up. I don't think I caught up this week, but I did have a lot of progress. So I'll show you what it looked like the last time you saw it. I am stitching this on 36 count Parchment by Weeks Dye Works. It's the Zweigart base. And I am stitching, I had somebody ask me on Instagram how many strands I'm using, because 36 count is a little bit in between. It's hard to decide whether or not to use 2 strands or 1 strand. For me, 2 strands looks really bulky, and so I would rather use 1 strand. The coverage isn't perfect. I mean, in the dark colors you can see the fabric a little bit behind, but because this is a sampler and not a full coverage piece, that doesn't really bother me all that much. So I'm using 1 strand of floss on 36 count Weeks Dye Works Parchment. And like I say, I'm really happy with my progress. And this is what it looks like now. So when you saw it last time, about the only thing down on this row was this tree. So I've stitched this rabbit, and I think that's a moose and bird, and all of these trees under here. This central tree, which I think is supposed to be an apple tree, and also these trees over here, and then this trio of animals over here as well. And I also pulled the border down to this side. So I'll give you a little bit closer look so that you can see what it is looking like. Yeah, so like I say, I'm really enjoying this. It's interesting. The color, this color here is the same color as this color here in the border, but because it's not surrounded by that tan, it looks much brighter here than it does up here. I'm really interested by that effect. And yeah, it's been really fun. All of these trees, stitching these trees, I have to admit, this reminded me of when I stitched And a Forest Grew. In fact, I think there are a couple of these trees are actually in And a Forest Grew also. And these animals, it's kind of interesting. They're mirror image, and also they're kind of different colors, so it's not exactly mirror image. There's a little bit of variation here. So the next time I work on this, I'm going to finish, stitch this that goes over here, finish the trees, and then bring this border down to the same level that it is over here. And then I'll start working down on this down here. So yeah, I'm really happy with how this is turning out. I really love the colors, and I especially, this border, I just really love the border. That's part of what attracted me to this piece. So I think I've got another level of stitching to do before I hit the house down here. My spreadsheet says that I'm about a quarter done. So 2 weeks, a quarter done, that means I have 6 weeks worth of work left on it. So yeah, it actually goes pretty quickly because it's a sampler. So there it is, my Red House sampler by Brenda Keys of the Sampler Company. And as I mentioned, you can see I haven't taken it out of my scroll bars. So this is my frame. It's an Omanique frame, and there's a dowel that fits in this groove, and that's what holds the fabric in place. And I find that it holds it better if the fabric is actually, if I have about a half a turn, right about here is, I need to have at least this much of a turn on the fabric for it to hold okay. So I need about that much extra space. I'm going to put my frame together so that you can see it put together. So it has these sidebars, and you screw this out to create the tension you need. So I'm going to put it together. I'll probably cut this out, and when I get back, I'll show you what it looks like when it's put together. Okay, so here we go. This is what it looks like when it's put together. You have these sidebars, and basically as you increase tension by screwing this up. So, and I can get really good tension with this frame. I really love it. I like it because it's easy to load and unload fabric, and I can get really good tension on it. The biggest challenge I have with it is I have to play with the length of my fabric. So I don't know if you noticed, but down at the bottom I had a lot more fabric sticking out than I did on the top, and that's because I had to adjust the position of my bar so that I could get good tension with this length of sidebar. It's also, I try to keep this as straight as possible here because that helps me get good tension. Sometimes I get pockets that are not quite tense enough, and that's just because I have a hard time keeping this straight. But the straighter I can get this, the better my tension is. So yeah, so there is my frame and what I've been working on. Okay, so let's talk about what I'm going to work on this week. I have hit the end of my rotation, which means I have given myself permission to start a new project. And I showed this a couple of weeks ago. I think I'm still going to start it. I think this is a good project to be working on for the lead up to Easter, so I think it's really good to start. This is The Lord is My Shepherd by Yvette Ungricht, and it is basically a band sampler with The Lord is My Shepherd, the 23rd Psalm. The words to the 23rd Psalm are spread throughout the design. There's a little bit of heartanger down here that'll be interesting. I have a couple of pieces now that have cut work in them, and it's kind of like a race to see which one I get to first. I've never done it before, so it'll be a learning experience for me when I get down here. The colors, the suggested, the model was stitched on white fabric, 32 count, and I think I'm going to do that. The reason why is these colors, if you look at these colors, they are very, very bright and very, very brilliant colors. And I think that it will look better on white than it would on a brownish, primitive looking sampler. The colors are not primitive, and I think that it deserves to be on white rather than on a primitive looking fabric. So I am going to get this ready. I have my floss, and I had a piece of fabric in my stash that I can use. And so I'm going to get this ready, and I think I'm going to start this tonight. We'll start at the top with the shepherd and the sheep. So we'll see how far I can get with this week. It should be a fun experience. So that is what I'm going to be working on. So that is all that I have to share with you today. As always, if you want to follow my progress as I begin The Lord is My Shepherd, you can follow me on Instagram. I am at blitstitch on Instagram, and I post a photo of my progress every day that I stitch, and you can follow that there. As always, feel free to like this video. I really appreciate it if you would do that. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel, feel free to subscribe. That way you can get notification when I post new videos. Also, feel free to comment. I'm always glad to hear from you and answer any questions that you have for me. As always, I hope that you have a great week, and we will talk to you later. Goodbye.